Hello. Well, yesterday I saw The Odyssey. I also have the book, or poem, technically. And I've read this, and obviously yesterday I saw it in IMAX, and that was I think that's the best way to see this film. I know not everybody will be able to see it the way Christopher Nolan wants everybody to see it on 70mm. But in short, I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. Overall, the story itself is fairly faithful in terms of, like, you know, the spirit and everything, and certain major things that happen in the story. They do occur. And I have some notes. But yeah, this was an excellent experience to see on the big screen. And first off, I just wanted to say the acting is really good. Matt Damon is great. Anne Hathaway is great. Tom Holland is great. Robert Pattinson is great. You know, the cast overall is excellent. I know there's been some controversy prior to this film coming out about some of the casting. Ellen Page, or Elliot Page now. Apologies. Page worked with Nolan on Inception, and now, is reunited with Nolan, and how playing Sinan, and Sinan in the Odyssey, and how Page was there quite a bit, but not a whole lot. You see the character at the beginning, and then later in the underworld, Hades scene, and Lupita Nyong'o was fine as Helen of Troy. I know there was also controversy there, as well as Travis Scott as a bard. He's there in a few scenes. But the thing is, I kind of knew from reading the book that the characters they were playing, or with Paige, for a long time nobody really knew who Paige was playing until some weeks before the film came out, or was going to come out. So yeah, people did not know offhand, and there's a lot of speculation about that. But I'm like, if all these rumors are true of who Paige is playing, Elliot Page is playing, then his role won't be super huge. So a lot of people who are very vocally against this decision, it's like, to an extent I kind of get it, but at the same time it's like, well, let's wait until it's actually out, because with something like this, people have certain, with casting, they want it to be as faithful as possible to the ancient, Greeks. And one thing with the Odyssey, I will just say right here, is that the tale itself kind of combines the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, or Dark Ages. despite it taking place at a certain time, at the same time there's different ages combined for this story. Same with the Iliad. It's a myth, fantasy elements, there's monsters and other things that are very fantastical happening, like with particularly with the creatures. Yeah, Travis Scott, I've never seen him act at all, so, Scott being there for a few scenes was not the worst thing ever. Nyong'o, Lupita Nyong'o, she was fine. Again, people are like, should have had someone else be Helen of Troy. And again, if you're going to try to do a faithful adaptation and in a sense of trying to get, I guess, historically accurate people of the time, ethnic backgrounds, I guess so, and everything. Yeah. But the thing is, as I've seen some people have pointed out, even with other adaptations, to an extent that like a complete faithful adaptation isn't going to necessarily happen. Though, of course, there are miniseries, and miniseries have been made. At least there has been one prominent one, like back in the 90s. I've never seen that, so I can't say how well that holds up. Or this holds to that one, So I have no clue. But there's also been speculation that the diversity of the cast kind of came down to like the Oscars. There's been people saying that and throwing that around. I'm like, because like particularly with Best Picture, it's like you got to have a diverse cast and crew, or crew, in order to qualify for like Best Picture. And the thing with Nolan, it doesn't seem like for him, I think he just wants the best people. I think that's what he wanted for this. Like, he wants the best people. Some people he's worked with before, some he hasn't. It's a mix. And obviously, everybody's opinion on the matter of certain cast members will be different. I've known Paige and Nyong'o being fine performers. I've seen their work before in the past, so I've wasn't really worried about them as much, though. I get it. Again, we want to be fairly accurate and everything, but and I know Travis Scott, he's a rapper, so never seen him act before until now, but he was fine in the few scenes he was in. Zendaya, I've never been the biggest fan of hers, just because she often has played the same sort of character in many ways, like in various films I've seen of hers. So from that, I wasn't like, I don't know how this will play out, but I'll give it a chance, because any cast member that has been talked about, that has been questioned about being, they should either not be in the film at all, or questioning why Nolan has cast them. I was like, I'm gonna wait till I see the movie. That way I can accurately and properly assess judgment, and if any of these people are completely wrong for the part, I'll be like, yeah, he or she should not have been in this film because X, Y, Z just didn't fit. Being one. But I think they all did fine. These particular cast members who have drawn up quite a bit of controversy over the last so many months. And Zendaya, you know, she was fine, you know, as Athena. I did not have a major issue, but, you know, with the acting, I think that was all fine across the board. Damon was excellent, but Matt Damon is typically very good. You know, as Odysseus, he was really good. And Hathaway as Penelope was really good. Tom Holland as Telemachus was very good. You know, Telemachus, he was very good in that role. And Robert Pattinson as Antonius. Antonius, yeah, he was Antonius, yeah, he was fine in the part, or he was excellent in the part. You know, as a suitor for Penelope, and very vindictive. You know, like, you know, wanting to kill Telemachus and everything, and want him dead, so that hopefully he'll be the man she chooses to wed, since Odysseus has been gone for so long. And they all think he's dead. And, yeah. He was really good. I saw Christian Bale, for Matt Damon, he's a Christian Bale, Tom Hardy, and Leonardo DiCaprio all turned down the role of Odysseus, which is why he got to play the part. And I've wanted to see Christian Bale return in a Christopher Nolan film, and hearing that actually kind of gives me hope that maybe one day the two will reunite. Though I do know Christian Bale has had this foster, he's been trying to get this foster care project of his off the ground for so long. Like he's been working on it for 17 years in order to make sure siblings are with each other the entire time. Because in the foster care system, many times they are completely and totally separated. Like when the parents die, or one parent dies and nobody knows where the other parent is, or there's no immediate families. And so it seems like, you know, for Bale, he's worked so hard to finally get that going, that once Nolan was going to make this movie, it was just bad timing and he couldn't do it. I think also especially just him having to be overseas out of America and in multiple countries. I think that's probably another big reason. You know, it's one thing if, you know, he does a movie and it's within USA, so if there's any issues, he could probably get on a plane and go and supervise. But yeah, I think for the most part, yeah, it looks like he was making sure that project of his was underway once things actually started to move. So I don't blame Bale for not doing it, but also it would have been cool. I think he would have been great. I think Tom Hardy would have been good too in this film. I don't know necessarily about Odysseus. He would have probably pulled it off well, but I think one of Odysseus's men, for sure, like his right-hand man, I think he would have been good for that. The cinematography is really good in this film, but Hoyte van Hoytema has been excellent on every Nolan film since Interstellar. You know, he just does great work. Ludwig Göransson's score was excellent, as usual. This is the third time Nolan and him have worked together since Hans Zimmer has been working on the Dune films. Every time Nolan goes to make a new movie for the score, you know, since Tenet, he's gone to Göransson, and yeah, he's great. The practical effects are fantastic. You know, the 60-foot Cyclops and, you know, Scylla and all these monsters and, you know, creatures and everything that's in the story, you know, that you can see in real life. That's actually amazing. And yeah, overall, there are changes to the poem, or from the poem to for the film, and there's various reasons, such as the fact that lengthwise, you have to condense the film and cut things out, because otherwise you're not going to be able to get the whole thing. Because the movie, you know, because this was the first film ever shot. I keep holding up the book, but you know what I mean. This is the very first feature-length film specifically to be shot entirely in IMAX. So, an IMAX camera, so that itself is actually a feat, but IMAX cameras, or specifically projectors, can only hold a maximum of 3 hours at the length. Like, that's their max. They can't, you know, at this time, have anything more than 3 hours. Oppenheimer was 3 hours. So, you know, that's the max length. And, yeah. It's a little disappointing, but, you know, I think to an extent, you know, having to combine certain elements or drop them or change some stuff when need be kind of does make sense. Yeah, it would have been awesome to see so much of this, what happens, and so certain things that could be mixed or negative about. The big one is the dialogue. You know, there's modern words being used instead of the old Greek or the old, maybe even tiny English stuff that we might be even used to for films like this. And after a while, like around 20 minutes or so, yeah, I got used to it. This film is 2 hours and 52 minutes, so, I mean, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes might not have been that long, but it was like, you know, when you hear people just saying that, you know, obviously, you know, daddy and mom and dad, you know, all that, words that were not really used back in the days of Homer, you know, that was something that you kind of notice, and you're like, yeah, I don't know, hopefully this is good, or this is going to be good. And after a while, I was able to just kind of go with it. It was not a huge, major issue with me. Of course, that's going to be different from viewer to viewer. And there are also other liberties going on, which I said that, you know, the 3 hour runtime is a big reason. Such as, certain elements of the story are changed, such as the narrative being, or showing things that happen rather than being told orally is one, as well as various aspects of the story being combined to save time or just being dropped for pacing, and also just to further the overarching story along, such as the Phaeacians aspect of the story is completely dropped. The Lestrygonians are also different from what they are in the story. You know, giant cannibals. You know, that made a lot of people curious as to what's going on. Like, I remember seeing stuff like, well, people like talking about the trailers or like screenshots and stuff. Like, what is this? What's going on? And so, you know, I'm not necessarily sure that's necessarily a bad change, because from what I've recall reading, you know, and what happens, you know, again, they're cannibals and everything, and Odysseus's men's ships are destroyed, so that aspect of it is good. It's just kind of the way it was done is a bit different. Now, of course, people who really are sticklers for accuracy to the source material, obviously that's going to be a big thing. But for me, when it came to like the whole knowing it was all shot in IMAX, knowing that it couldn't be over 3 hours, as well as some of the casting that has been, I've already mentioned, that caused a lot of stir going on and everything. You know, people are like, oh, this won't be a faithful adaptation because of this, and that. And, you know, there are people who, you know, have branded those who are criticizing such decisions as, you know, oh, they're bigots and this and that. And I'm like, but a good chunk of the criticisms I was seeing and hearing about that were not necessarily bigoted, you know, at least not in a place of being downright hateful to any of these people. But, you know, it was like more of a concern, like this might not be as good of a film as it could be in the eyes of some people. But there are people who, of course, are purposely trying to press buttons and stir, you know, like trolling and everything. Just wants to get a reaction out of people, and if they get a certain reaction, they're happy. Like, I win. It's just how people are. And, you know, I did see some of that, and I'm like, yeah, okay, well, you know, that's just gonna happen. And I went at this as open as possible. I know the story, so yeah, I knew what the story was, and I knew that I'm gonna watch this, and, you know, I'm gonna look at this from just that of a moviegoer, and hopefully enjoy an experience of the Odyssey, and I did enjoy it. But yeah, you know, so the dialogue, I think that was kind of a mixed bag for me, especially early on, but after a while I kind of got used to it. So a bit of a mixed bag, but also not a deal breaker. And some of these changes I'm also pointing out, they're not necessarily bad necessarily, but I could see how some of those could be bad. And yeah, and again, with the casting and all, I do get it why some people, you know, they wanted an adaptation that was definitely full-on accurate. And I do get that. In a way, I understand. You want the right men, the right women of a certain ethnicity. You know, of course, you know, if you got Greek actors and actresses, you know, fact is most people would not know who a lot of those people are. Nothing against some of the best Greek actors and actresses at all. Not at all, but you know, when you can get like a big you know, talent with big names that people know, I get it. You know, I can get that because, and some of these people Nolan has worked with before. So yeah, and I'm sure also for on the studios level, it's like, you know, the name Christopher Nolan, that gets people's attention. It gets people to see the film. So if he did want to go without any well-known names, he probably could have done so and still gotten people to see it. But he did not go that route. You know. Oh, another thing is the Cyclops in the poem. He actually has quite a bit of dialogue and converses with Odysseus. You know, with the Lustronians, like the giant cannibals. You know, yeah. They do kill Odysseus's men. It's just different in the film than it is in the poem. And the Cyclops does not have as much dialogue, interaction, but yeah. The ending is also different, but you know, I'm not gonna get into that because there are people who not only have not exactly seen the film yet. You know, I saw it obviously yesterday, and I took a while to really think about this, as well as I've also saw other people's reactions, and some of their reactions are I kind of get, you know, I get why some people are negative, but then some people are just overtly negative. I was like, okay, well, and to a degree, I think for some, not all, but some of the people who are very negative, like they've built up this whole thing where they've made many videos about this, and their audience expects a negative reaction. And I'm sure, you know, well, I've seen some, but I haven't seen all of them, but for some I've noticed, like, you know, they do give credit where it's due, like, yeah, so the performances are good, you know, visually it's excellent, you know, the practical effects and practical monsters and creatures are all good and all that, so they give props where it's due. Well, but sometimes I think some are just overtly negative, and that's not necessarily the best thing in the world, but you know, what are you gonna do? In a way, for some, it's like, you know, maybe they liked it a bit more, and they aren't being 100% honest. Like, they might be honest in that they didn't enjoy it a whole lot, but perhaps in a way, it's like maybe they enjoyed it a bit more than they expected, but they aren't gonna necessarily express that in any video where they're, you know, just generally talking about, like, here, I don't necessarily think this is a review for what I do. I just talk about movies that I like. I don't talk a whole lot about stuff I don't like. No, I have talked about stuff I've been mixed on. I mean, I have talked about some films I'm not fond of or I'm mixed on, but which I just said. But still, I generally talk about stuff I enjoy. But yeah, these are all the things that I'm like, you know, I wanted to highlight stuff I liked and stuff I was kind of mixed on or could see other people being mixed on it, especially if you've read the story. Yeah, but I think the direction of Nolan overall with this was very good. You know, I kind of get certain changes he made and why he omitted certain aspects, like, because it's non-linear, you know, as it is in the story. So that aspect is there, But yeah. Well, overall, it was an excellent experience to see in IMAX. I think if you are able to watch this in IMAX, do it, because that's the best way I think you could ever watch it. And yeah. That's my thoughts. You know, went into this wanting to enjoy something that was very, you know, like epic in scale, and some good performances and everything, and an excellent score and cinematography. And I got that, and you know, it was a good experience for me. You know, there are people saying, "Oh, film of the year," and everything, and I'm like, you know, maybe this will be the best film of the year. And I know some people are like, "Oh, this year doesn't look like the greatest for movies and stuff," but people have been saying that for years too. So, you know, this was definitely a film that was. I went in with an open mind. You know, I know the source material, and yeah, and also mine also has, like, you know, it's the Roman version in terms of, in the sense of, like, the names are changed, like, you know, like Ulysses instead of Odysseus, Minerva instead of Athena, Jove instead of Zeus, and, you know, stuff like that. You know, that's what's in this book. I got this from Amazon. This in the Iliad, and it's translated by Samuel Butler, and it does have that old English sort of speak, and this was originally printed in 1900, so this is definitely over a century old. So yeah. Another thing is that you know, Nolan said that he read 3 versions of the Odyssey, and Emily Watson's translation was the one that was mentioned. I don't believe he ever really mentioned any of the other versions he read, like translations, but her version has been criticized because there's a lot of words in it, in the story, that did not exist back in Homer's time, as well as just, you know, some people think that kind of talk should not be in the Odyssey. So I also read somewhere she's apparently gonna do another translation, so maybe some of those issues people had will be gone. Though I don't know, because she did one of the Iliad, and people were like, "Oh, that was an excellent translation," but then her Odyssey was not that great. So anyway, I've never read her version, so I can't say, but I enjoyed this version that I've got, and I enjoyed this film. I'll probably watch it again, no doubt, at the very least when it's on like 4K and Blu-ray. That way I can watch it again, and I'll see whether or not I think, oh yeah, this is still good, or whether my opinion will change. If my opinion changes at all, then I'll probably, you know, make a video saying why my opinion changed. But, you know, or maybe I won't, I don't know. Anyway, this video has gone on quite a bit. Again, while I initially thought about talking about this yesterday, I figured, you know, I just want to kind of take a breather and collect my thoughts, maybe write some stuff down, and then add to it, you know, before making this video. And so that's what I did, about various positives and negatives or mixed things. But yeah, apologies if I kind of repeated myself. You know, happens every so often. But yeah, I'm gonna end it here now. So hopefully this was not a complete bore of a watch. So, you know, if you've watched it, what do you think? Do you think it was good? Did you think it was bad? And also, just as a film too, I know obviously there will be people hung up about the adaptation aspect, but I'm just like, you know, what about the film? What about it as a film? As its own thing, you think it's good? I think it is. You know, there are changes and things dropped and stuff, which I kind of get. So, would some of that stuff that are in this be awesome to see on IMAX? Yeah, but I get it. Why it was not like 3.5 hours minimum. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on this, and I hope this was interesting. Again, this was quite long, so apologies for the length, but I also wanted to try to be as thorough as I could, given my reasons why I thought the film itself was good. And again, I did my best to really just judge it as the film, and not so much off of what is in the poem. I mean, in a way, that's fair. I think it is definitely fair. Though some people, I think, kind of get so hung up about some things being so, like, it needs to be completely, you know, faithful in every way. And, but, you know, with film, you know, it's a different medium in a way than a book or poem. And, you know, in adapting things, you gotta try to make sure it looks, when you're gonna do it for a movie, you gotta make sure it looks good. And maybe even certain elements he wanted in the film, but he didn't put it in there because of one reason or another. Like, probably time. I would imagine time was a big reason. Because, you know, again, made the entire film, shot on IMAX, film stock, and this is the very first time it's ever happened. So, yeah. Also, I think for some of those people who are complaining it's not super faithful, I don't know if they've even read the Odyssey. Like, it's a very well-known story, so no doubt they know of it, but in terms of actually reading it themselves and knowing all the various aspects of the story, you know, I think for a good number of people who have been complaining about how it's not faithful and everything, I think a good number of those, again, just have never even read the Odyssey. They just know of the story because it's one of those stories that everybody knows, even if you've never read it. Kind of like Romeo and Juliet. Everybody pretty much knows that. We all know that, even if you've never read it. Like, you never read it in school, never saw a play of it, maybe you never even saw a movie adaptation of it. Like, you know Romeo and Juliet. You know, there are just certain stories you know, even without reading it or anything. So, okay. Now I'm gonna be officially done because I'm now pushing 40 minutes. So, yeah, my gab needs to be officially done. So, I hope this was interesting. If not, I'm sorry for going on and on about this. But I hope it's clear that I judged this really based off of the film. And yes, again, having read the source material, you know, I was able to see what see what was included and what wasn't, and what was like kind of condensed and everything. So yeah. Anyway, again, leave your thoughts if you like this or not. I hope all of you are doing well. Hope you all had a great week, and I hope you'll have a great weekend as well as your day has been good. So please take care, and I'll see you all next time.